10:23 on Thursday, June 11th. We started on a little bit of a delay. Cablevision lost their signal and they reset it and we're back online. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Ken, can you take the lead, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could just take one moment of silence for everyone in Riverhead and the victims of COVID. Thank you. Before we begin our discussions, I would like to make a brief statement updating COVID-19. Town Hall is now open on a limited basis. Please call before visiting in an effort to limit wait time and maintain CDC and DOH protocols. If you are in need of emergency food, regardless of your economic stance, need, please call 311 and register for delivery. This service is available to everyone. For example, if you are quarantined due to COVID and your family needs immediate food, call 311 and register, and a box of emergency food will be delivered to your door. It's non-perishable food for 3 days for 4 people. Our Senior Riverhead Safe program continues to deliver prepaid orders and supplies along with our Meal and Wheels program. Yesterday we entered phase 2 of reopening Riverhead. The businesses that are permitted to reopen are retail, real estate, vehicle sales, leases, rentals, retail rentals, repair, cleaning, commercial building management, hair salons, barber shops, and outdoor dining. Internal dining is scheduled for phase 3 on July 1st. At the current time, I've been told by our building planner, we have 30 applications for outside dining, and I did walk through the Main Street yesterday, and it was actually to see, it looked pretty quaint, the town, more than ever, and hopefully we're going to build upon that. All businesses must follow the New York Forward website and be guided by the Business Reopen lookup tool. So you look up your business and it gives you your guidance. At the end of that guidance, you have to file for your business affirmation stating that you understand all the CDC protocols. That is a must, and they will be doing inspections. The CDC, the DOH, and there will be some type of enforcement. They may visit your business to make sure you have your safety plan on premise. That does not have to be reported to the state. You just have to have your safety plan and have the business affirmation form on file. Devin Higgins and the deputy supervisor will be working with the council members, Tim, Jody, all council members, to start opening and working on phase 2, and then have something ready on phase 3. And we're going to be following all the protocols according to New York Forward. Any information that you need, any businesses, any citizen, any resident, you need to go into New York Forward. Just type in New York Forward, it'll pop up. It's important that you keep checking the site, because some of these businesses are starting to toggle up and down. We had some protocol, and then like 2 days ago, Tim says, when did this start? And I just got it. They moved, there's no limit on outside dining. And at one point, it was going to be 50%, and then we may get an email and it'll say, this came down, it's checked, there's no, so, and that'll be on the website. Once, when we get it, it's already on the website. Often, it's already on the website. I urge everyone to please ensure you continue to practice social distancing protocols as guided by the CDC and the DOH. We have seen surges in 21 states. We need to be cautious and creative as we begin entering the new normal. We are finally halfway to reopening Riverhead. We cannot go backwards. And on one last point, Suffolk County is currently experiencing a very low blood supply. The Vineyards at Aquabog is hosting a blood drive today between 9 and 7 p.m. It's by appointment only. It's a very quick process. You make your appointment, you go right in, and as soon as you finish, you can go right out. There's no wait time. Please call 646-739-1827. 646-739-1827. Moving forward, discussion items, the building and planning, update on the master plan, and that would be Hubbard, Kent, and Murphy.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Jeff.
Morning.
Good morning.
So just an update on where we are with the comp plan update. We signed the contract at the beginning of the year in January. We really started working in February, and then, of course, in March, we had the shutdown, which really put a stymie on a lot of efforts in the planning department. Despite that, we were having weekly meetings with the two town planning, two consultants. We hired the two firms. The first one is Alley, King, Rosen, and Fleming, AKRF. And then the other consultant is Lewis McLean Associates. They're doing the traffic analysis as part of the update. From AKF, we have the principal, Bob White. We have Steve Holly and Lorianne DeFalco. From McLean Associates, we have Ray DeBias, who is the head of the traffic component of the update. As I said, we've been having weekly or bi-weekly meeting depending on how much work was accomplished since the prior weekly meeting. Since we started that work, the consultants have been working on the background data, where we were from when we left off with the 2003 update. It's quite a long time ago. A lot of things have changed. They're getting a lot of the background data and gathering all the other studies that have been done since then. They are updating our zoning map. The zoning map that we have posted is not 100% accurate, so we're having to go through basically on a parcel by parcel basis to try to update it to make sure it's as accurate as possible. They're updating the population projections. This is going to be a work in progress. This is unprecedented times with the COVID. It's going to be interesting to see where the population projections are going to, how they're going to change. When I undertook this effort with the town board, I really wanted the comp plan to reflect healthy communities. This is even more important now given the current situation. Another thing that's changed globally is the global warming. That was not even on our forefront a lot in 2003. Sea level rise and alternative energy sources is going to be really an important part of the update. To help us in this effort, we're going to be creating an advisory committee, and I know that Tim Hubbard has been appointed as liaison to help us in this regard. There are going to be appointments from various boards and committees, such as the Planning Board, Transportation, Environmental, and also the various hamlets communities. Community outreach is going to be a really, really important part of all this. We have a lot of hamlets in this town, and we really want to make sure that they're a part of this effort. The next step in all this is to have a kickoff meeting with you, the town board. We really were trying to have this earlier this year, but with the pandemic, it really slowed things down quite a bit. We have to finish the work on the background data and the zoning map first before we can schedule it, but we're anticipating a mid-July date for the kickoff meeting. So that's where we are today.
Thank you, Jeff. I think it's actually very exciting. I think this is going to be a great tool for us. We'll be able to use it in every way. And I just have to say, Shelter Island, I guess, is following our lead. They reached out to me, and I don't know if they spoke to you as well, to find out the process that we followed, and so they're using Riverhead as a lead for them.
You remind me, I need to call that person back. Thank you for reminding me.
And at that point, they did ask me if we had an advisory committee, and so I'm glad that you brought that up today, because that is such a key component.
Absolutely. It's the only way it will work. The one thing that want differ from, we had one in 2003. There were over 20 members to that. You cannot not manage 20 people. It's way too big. So
especially if you're on Zoom.
Yeah. So
I was part of that in 2003, so it's going to be very interesting to see how the changes and see the needs that are now as opposed to back then. some are very obvious right now, but others are not,
Right.
Right.
and they're gonna come out.
And I know that Richard Wines is anxious to get the information.
About the
You know,
TDRs.
this will be helpful with the TDRs, which is a good thing, so, I'm really excited to see how everything turns out.
So it's kind of interesting. I started my planning career in New Jersey, working on their very first TDR program. They actually had a TDR program in East Windsor, New Jersey, and it was shot down because there was no statutory legislation to allow it. So I actually worked with a private non-for-profit to create and draft the first TDR law in New Jersey. So here we are, that was 1983. Here we are 2020, I'm still talking about TDRs.
Yeah, I think that the TDR committee that I was a part of for many years already has in mind like what they wanna do as far as the zoning, but the hurdle was paying for the SECRA.
Yeah.
Which couldn't be funded,
Well, the other
So-
part of that is the landing areas with the rezonings, that's an action that really the five of you need to weigh in on. That's gonna be a critical part to all this. It can't just be Route 58.
No,
There might be some other areas in industrial areas that need to be looked at. So that's gonna be a critical part of it, and that has to, as Councilman Giglio pointed out, that has to be analyzed under SECRA. You can't just adopt a
Right.
landing and zoning to allow more development and not do a SECRA analysis on it.
Now, Jeff, I would assume that the Hamlets will be represented on the committee, maybe that's
Yes,
why the
mhm.
numbers were so
Yep.
big last time.
Yep.
We don't have that many Hamlets.
Yeah,
but-
we don't have that many
I mean,
hamlets.
they could be changing.
We have 7
things-
hamlets.
They could be changing things within the hamlets.
Yep,
so-
absolutely.
just don't touch the farmers, they've already been hit once.
Yeah, I know, with rezoning.
I think
Jeff,
if he did, Frank would come, have a few words to say about that.
I think we'd all be with you, Frank.
Jeff, I understand at one point we had a timeline as to the completion of this effort.
Yeah, we're looking at approximately 2 years.
Okay, so I think it got delayed. Can we
Right.
just try to work on Tim on the timeline so we
Mhm.
can follow and see where we're going on it?
I think originally the timeline was 18 months,
Yep.
but, so, I mean, it's not that far off.
Right.
I'm glad because we did lose time, but
Yep.
it's still pretty close to that first number they gave us of 18 months.
Okay, and if it is that will reveal, if you update that, we have to update the master plan's
Yep.
projection. It also has milestones on it, so maybe we can just have a fresher look, the board that could just have a fresher look and pass out the timeline with the milestones, so we can all be, stay on top of it.
Before the kickoff meeting, we're putting together a packet of information for you that
Mhm.
includes background, the data. I already sent you the bios on the different consultants that are part of the team. In that packet is a timeline in it. It's obviously gonna have to be adjusted because of the pandemic.
Right.
But that's intended to be flexible, so.
Good.
The other part of this is gonna be the first time that technology is gonna be really a critical part of it with the Zoom meetings. Things are changing,
Yes, it's a new normal.
yeah.
I would just recommend, I know you wanna keep the size of the committee small, but, I think it's gonna be critical to have, Rob Carpenter from Long Island Farm Bureau and a representative from PLT and/or a representative, cause they really, represent a lot of the landowners here in town.
What's PLT?
Okay.
Peconic Land
Oh.
Trust, yep.
I never used the acronym for them.
If you have ideas of people who want on the committee, if you could forward them to Yvette's office, that would be great, and then.
Yeah, Devin sits in on the meetings and she's coordinating that effort from my office.
I think that when the decision was made to go forward with the master plan update, that there have been several applications that have come in for different zoning than what they have, saying that the current zoning is not conducive to what they wanna do on those properties. Is our consultant willing to review those applications rather than just telling them, sorry, you can't file anything now, because we're not done with the master plan update and we may not be done for 2 years?
That's a question for the board. Some of these are smaller. I know one place wants to rezone so they can have a fast food restaurant, all the way up to assisted living facilities are looking for rezoning.
It's
And
the
it-
assisted living that I didn't know about the fast food one, but the assisted living, and then I think there was another parcel where they were looking for an office type use,
So,
I think on Main Road.
Well, there's a reason we do these studies, I think you'll agree, Jeff, and, I mean, I understand what you're saying, because it's a 2-year period, but at the same time, I don't want it to become the wild, wild west, and everybody's trying to change what their zoning is and do things, and because there's a reason that we are doing this plan. It's a long-range planning for our town, which is really important.
And that's quite understandable, but we need to have a balance, and if Main Street is going, if there's a lot of interest, then we bring it before the board and we all
Yeah.
collectively agree. We're
That's all
not
I'm
waiting
asking.
2 years for a plan.
That's all I'm asking for,
Yes.
is that the
Mhm.
committee look at those applications and see if it's something that they think is either a great idea, a bad idea, or something, and then put a recommendation forward to the town board, because they are property owners, they are paying a lot of money every
Mhm.
year in taxes, and just because, I mean, when did we adopt the resolution for the master plan?
It was last year, but the contract wasn't signed until, beginning of this year.
Yeah, so it was the beginning of last year, yes?
No, no, no.
No.
The contract was not signed until January of this year.
No, I'm saying, when was the resolution adopted to move
I don't
forward
have
with the
that
master
information in front
plan?
of me.
No.
I thought it was like
It was
spring.
probably, it was probably like mid-summer, mid to late summer last year.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was summer, cause I remember we were meeting and looking over all the groups.
So a year ago is when the resolution was adopted to move forward with the master plan update. It was only supposed to take 8 months, so technically we should have been done
Yeah, no,
18 months.
18 months.
So technically, we should have been done by the end of this year with the master plan update, and then the
Well,
contract, for whatever
it'd be
reason.
18 months from the time that we hire somebody, because we had to go through the whole RFP process, the interview process,
Let me see when we
and all of that,
adopted the resolution.
before we'd actually, the start of the 18 months would actually, begin.
And Yvette, just to your point, I don't think this update is gonna hold up things in downtown, because, I mean, actually, our downtown zoning is pretty lenient right now. I mean, you can go, you know, full build out and 60 feet up, so I don't think it would be holding up projects.
And that's great, we need to move Riverhead forward, and if there are plans, in the works, then we need to review them, and we have to create that balance, and that the board can make those decisions as quickly as we can. We need to, you know, we're moving away from a pandemic, hopefully we're gonna stay there, and now we have to start rebuilding, and now we're charged, you know, the town board is charged with dealing with, all the injuries that we had, all the financial instability, applications waiting that weren't processed, waiting for a master plan, and we need to get creative, and, if we get creative and we work cohesively, we can move all these projects as quickly as we can.
Right, and I don't think there's any of us up here that don't wanna move Riverhead forward. I
Okay,
think we're in
and that's
agreement
good.
on that. I think everybody wants to, especially get our downtown revitalized and up and moving, so
Mhm.
we're all in agreement on that point.
Right. But it's the time frame that we're talking about. We gotta move it quickly and expeditiously, and, thank you for supporting that. And, is that it, Jeff?
That's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving forward, engineering, stormwater, escrow, deposits, that's, McCormick and, Dillingham.
Julie's here, they just came in from down the hallway. Good morning, council members.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dan.
Morning, Dan.
Devin, was that put on the internet yet?
Yes, everything's up. What he's handing out is on the internet as of yesterday.
Okay, yeah, great,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thanks, Dan. There's an extra one, do you need one?
I'll take another one back, thank you.
Yep.
I can start and then Drew can jump in.
Sure.
He is here. I was just
Okay.
speaking with him. He may have been detained on a phone call. But I can jump in if you folks are ready to proceed. Great, thank you. So, in speaking with Drew, and regarding the stormwater management escrow deposits concerning our stormwater program, Drew has raised the point that we are not taking in enough money initially regarding the development projects concerning our outside consultant. So by way of edification, in 2007, the DEC promulgated rules which required the local municipalities to undertake enforcement of stormwater management projects regarding enforcement and monitoring of those projects. Pursuant to those regulations, the town of Riverhead enacted provisions which allowed us to undertake that enforcement and monitoring of those projects. Initially, from 2007 to 2012, projects were monitored and enforced in-house by our town engineering department. However, due to personnel constraints going forward and the complexity of the plans and the amount of time that was required in processing those stormwater plans, the town board in 2012 enacted a code provision whereby that work was outsourced to two separate companies regarding stormwater development projects. The first was DeVerker and Bartolucci, and the second was Bowen and Son.
Actually, we interviewed, I think, 6 different companies at the time, and then we came up with the 2 because it was either Drew was spending 90% of his time reviewing these SWIP drawings, and we needed him to do other things. So rather than hire another town engineer, I made the proposal that we go out for RFP and have outside engineers do the inspections and do this kind of work. So we did have 2 companies for many years, and then one of them, you weren't, well, we don't need to say that, but one was better than the other.
Right, and so from that point forward, we had one outsourced company, that being DeVerker and Bartolucci. Pursuant to that agreement, the town board enacted those code provisions which required an initial deposit into the stormwater account per project of $3,500. We now have a track record from 2012 to the present time, of course, 2020, whereby we have learned that regarding the projects in those 8 years, we're simply not taking enough money in on the initial deposit. And I just want to reiterate, this is not a proposal to increase fees. It's simply a proposal to increase the amount of the initial stormwater deposit so we have sufficient monies to pay our outsourced company for this particular work. I'm confident in telling you we are in active negotiations with DeVerker and Bartolucci for the new stormwater management contract, and I'm confident that they will agree to the very same terms and conditions that existed in 2019 regarding those fees. So I do not believe they will increase. And so we're simply looking to see if the board would consider increasing that initial deposit from $3,500 to $7,500. So we will have sufficient money in there, and we will not have to go back to the developer to request additional monies to pay our outside consultant. Of course, if a project finishes at less than $7,500, let's say it finishes at $5,000, we simply refund that $2,500 difference back to the developer at that point. I also want to note that in our 8 years of track record now, we also have a plan of a lesser degree. I like to call it SWIP Light. It's the erosion and sediment control plan, which involves less time and effort overall than a normal stormwater plan, a SWIP. And for that, Drew's recommending that we still maintain a $3,500 initial deposit, because in his experience now, they generally do not supersede that number in terms of a total cost to the outside consultant. So in a nutshell, we're looking to increase to $7,500 at this point going forward, and leaving $3,500 as the erosion and sediment control plan amount as Drew sees fit concerning those particular projects that come before him. Drew, is there anything else you might want to add? in terms of the numbers and the consultants. And, right, and obviously the issue concerning accounting, of course, right? Because our accounting department is required to tabulate and keep track of all these monies coming into those individual accounts for development projects. I'll turn it over to Drew.
Right, and when it gets less than 25% of what the 3,500 is, then we ask them for additional funds. And then they are not getting any further reviews on their resubmissions until we receive that money, correct?
Drew, how is that working out in
Yeah.
real-life experience?
You're gonna have to come up, Drew, so that they can hear you on the microphone. I think I'd be curious, Jefferson, with all these fees, all these projects, like what the site plan application fee was? Because some of these were 30,000, a lot of money, and I think our goal was to hold the developers accountable to make sure that their engineers were submitting complete plans, because I know, Drew, you spent a lot of time going back and forth with their engineers, basically teaching them how to do a SWIP, and it wasn't fair to you or your department to try and keep track of this, but I just, it looks to me that the average is probably around 33,000, 3,500, I only see a few that are more than 5,000.
Jody, the average, we excluded erosion and sediment control plans because they're typically done in 1 or 2 reviews. They're much simpler than a full SWIP. So they consistently came in at $3,500 or less. So when we did the average for SWIPs, we excluded the erosion and sediment control plans. We did an average and a median for all the projects that we've done since 2012. And I believe the average was up near $5,000.
I believe it's over 5.
Over 5?
You have copies of
And the
the
median,
documentation.
the median is just
I have
under
it.
5.
I'm seeing,
What happens in the review process is an average review is anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500. And an average site has 2.5 reviews, between 2 and 3 reviews. So after the first two reviews, the $3,500 is basically used up. It's 75, when you've burnt through 75% of the $3,500, which is $875, the applicant is required to reimburse it again to $1,750. And that $1,750 goes with one further review. And you're constantly writing letters to the applicants asking for money. They take a while, and if they're past the CO stage, you won't see the money. If they have no need for us anymore, until the inspection phase, we won't see money until the inspection phase, and we can't pay D&B. And that happens often. So that's why we're asking for the $7,500, because that should be good throughout the project, because we also have 3 inspections. Each of those are around $600 during the construction phase, and then a final inspection so that they can get their notice of termination.
I think the acreage is important too as a factor in this, because out of the 38 cases that you've given us, less than half of them have been right around $5,000. So I think if you wanted to go to $5,000, I would probably say, let's go there. 3,500 was really an arbitrary number that we thought based on Drew's review time on these applications and what our outside engineers were going to look at. I think if you wanted to jump it up to 5,000, I would support that, but I think that Jeff, I really want to see what the site plan application fees were for all of these also. Because and it's an unfunded mandate by the state for us to take this over, because the state always did it with notices of intent. And they would review these, and then they decided to kick it down to the town. So when they did that, that's why we decided not to hire another engineer and just let the applicant be responsible for paying for the engineer review for the SWIP plans. And I know that we got a lot of pushback initially, but I think that everybody is somewhat happy with it now, because they're getting a much quicker review. And when they fall short in the account as to what the balance is, their review is essentially stopping. So if they want it to be approved, I don't understand what you're asking, saying that after the certificate of occupancy, it's hard to get the money from them, because it shouldn't be that, it shouldn't get that far. They shouldn't get that far ahead of us.
That's what's been happening.
I know, but if we're holding the minimum balance in the account for the SWIP review, then how do they get that far ahead of us?
Because the minimum balance at one point after the initial $3,500 is only $1,750. And you go through $1,750 with one review or one or two inspections.
Okay, so maybe that's the number that we need to change.
What's that?
I'm saying maybe the $5,000 deposit and then the secondary number that it can't fall below 2,500, because then that would give you 2,500 to be held in the account.
Well, right.
Rather than collecting it all up front, is what I'm saying.
If it was $5,000, then the number would be 2,500.
Well, 2,500 would be the balance that would have to remain in the account.
Correct.
So once it got below 2,500, then a notification would go out to them saying, you know, you have to keep the account at 2,500 at least.
Actually, it would be $1,250 because the way the code is written right now, it's 75%.
I agree with you
Drawdown.
in that needs to be changed, that number, but I'm not sure that we need to jump from 3,500 to 7,500.
Okay, well, that's why we're bringing it up.
Well, can we agree on a number here, because obviously we need, and then we can review it and adjust it later?
Yeah,
I
I think
think that we need-
5,000 for an initial deposit, and then a minimum of 2,500 if you're saying that 17 or 1,250 is what we're really holding in the account, that number should be higher.
We would be holding that if we bumped the number up to $5,000.
Okay.
The one thing I
But
would.
it's still not enough.
No.
So what I'm saying is the minimum in the account, if we bump it up to 5,000, then the minimum in the account should never fall below 2,000.
Yeah, it's still gonna be shortfalls.
If I could interject at this
Yes,
point and take in Councilwoman Giglio's points into consideration. Drew is showing an average cost of $5105.72 based on those projects from 2012 to 2020. I think at this juncture, taking Councilwoman Giglio's points as being valid concerns, I think 6,000 at least would cover what we now know to be the average cost of these projects in 8 years. We can see how 6,000 works going forward, and if we see that we're still having issues, we certainly can come back at that particular point. But at least 6,000 gives us a hedge, so engineering is not expending time and effort in chasing the developers for more money, so we can reimburse DeVerca and Bartolucci regarding this. Because obviously, it's time and effort for engineering to send out those letters requesting additional monies.
And anything excess would be refunded, so.
Yes.
it's not-
Exactly right. Again, this is not an increase in fees,
Right.
it's simply an increase in the escrow deposit.
Right, you're increasing your flow in order to be able to perform these inspections.
That's correct.
And reviews, so,
I think we had a problem with this with foundations, because we were collecting, and Phil, you can attest to this, where we had, I think, $400,000 in foundation, trust and agency for foundation deposits that Ray picked up on when he first started working here. And I think that creates a bookkeeping nightmare in refunding money to a developer rather than asking them to pay a final bill and make it true. But I don't know, it's up to the board. I think that 5,000 is enough upfront, but there has to be at least 22,000 in there at all times.
I think accounting would be a lot happier refunding than at the end of every single year, there's a shortfall in 3 or 4 accounts that we can't get back. I've spoken to Ray about it in detail, and he pleaded with me to try to get this amount raised.
Okay, but I guess the problem that I'm having with it is that if they're not paying the balance in full, when we get the final bill from DeVerca and Bartolucci, they're not getting their stamped approved drawings.
Okay.
So
That's in the very, very end, though.
I know, but if 5,000, if the average is 5,000, which is what I'm looking at here, 5,100 is what you said. If the average is 5,000, and DeVerca and Bartolucci says, okay, you know what, shops at Riverhead, the total bill came to 5,500, and here's their approved drawing. they're not getting their approved drawing until they give us the additional $500.
You're right, Jody, but the bottom line is, for every project we hold, right, we're still expending time and effort in some fashion, whether we're chasing them for the money, we're holding that file open, we're speaking with D&B going forward. There's a time factor, of course, that's not being reimbursed to the town and the various parties working on these projects. By having that money in the account, it serves the united interest of all parties in moving that SWIP forward so we can get these development projects completed in a timely fashion, especially now as we go forward with the present challenging environment that we have. So I'm respectfully recommending the 6,000 as a compromise at this point. Obviously, I defer to the board in what you want to do at this particular point, and I thank you for your consideration on it.
All right, so
I
let's-
agree with the
let's take a
6,000.
vote on the
Drew, were you
6,000.
good with the 6,000?
Sorry?
You were good with the 6,000?
Yes, Dan and I
Yes,
discussed that.
let's take a vote
Better
with
than
the.
7,500.
Yeah, you lowered it, okay. So let's take a vote.
Yes.
Yes?
I'm
Yes.
good
Yes
with the
on my end,
6,000.
yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'll prepare the local law paperwork for a hearing coming down. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, moving forward, town clerk concerning chapter 255 applications. Some were canceled, some were postponed, and Hubbard and,
Carol's just gonna be a second, she's not away.
okay.
Tim, did you wanna talk about the chapter 255 applications for the
Yeah,
requests that we have?
Carol's, I'm gonna talk about that.
Okay.
Carol's gonna
Carol.
go over what she has first and explain, and
You
then
have the
I'll,
resolutions?
I'm sorry?
I have the resolutions here, you want them?
No,
Okay,
I don't need those. She's just gonna explain what they are.
Okay, so we had,
Can
10
you identify yourself in case somebody doesn't know
Oh,
who
yes,
you are?
I'm sorry. Carol Del Vecchio, the town clerk's office. I
Okay.
take care of the special events.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we have 8 special events that had to be canceled due to the COVID. And they would all like a refund.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 10 that are rescheduling to a new date. And then we have 2 that would like a refund on their late fee, but also would like to reschedule.
Okay, so from what I understand, there was, Tim, before that, I just have a quick question.
Mhm.
There was something with the late fee that was paid on these 2 applications, but these late fees were paid prior to COVID.
That's correct.
And the work was done.
Right.
Yeah,
The work was
so
done
I
on
don't
it.
see why we need to, okay, well, you,
Yeah,
take it from
the
there.
late fee
Okay.
was paid prior to the outbreak, but the fact is that the town did the work on them. So for them to ask for that to be given back, I really don't agree with that because the work was performed. We had no control that the virus was gonna cause a pandemic. The work was done and they're looking to reschedule later on, so I don't agree with giving them back their late fees.
Yeah, and for the 8 people that decided that they don't wanna reschedule, we did the work. And we really went through it as to how much it actually cost us to process one of those applications. So the work was done, and if they wanted to reschedule, I would say just give them a new date. But as far as refunding, we already did the work. I agree.
Okay.
Well, I did look at all the resolutions of all the, we are refunding some.
Yeah,
You are
canceled
refunding.
events, I'm sorry,
Right.
Catherine.
But
go
it
ahead.
adds up, I'm just I mean, not against them, but we're so concerned about our money. I was wondering what the overall number is that we take a loss on there.
It's $2,100 for the refunds, and it would be $660 for the late fee refund.
Okay, so it's not
So
horrible.
were those, the 2,100 in refunds, were those applications that there was a town board resolution approving, those special permit applications?
Yes, some of them, yes.
So it was already completely through the process.
But some of them couldn't even didn't even have a chance to hold the event. It was in March, it was in April, it was in May.
And they don't wanna do it next year? In March,
Some of them-
April, and May?
Some of them couldn't. There was a plant sales and Mother's Day and Memorial Day barbecues and things like that, so it really, to reschedule it wasn't really an option for them.
So I would be in favor of giving them their money back for the canceled events due to this. And the 10 that are rescheduled, same thing, I mean, we just carry them on through. But the canceled events, again, that was That was something that happened, so they couldn't have the event.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would be in favor of refunding that.
Okay,
Me too.
So would I.
Yep.
Okay, we agree.
okay.
We're good.
Thank you,
So
Carol.
now, another question that,
Mhm.
Tim, you wanna?
Just something with the 255s, this came up to us the other day. And I'll use the example they're looking to do, the owner of the ballet store downtown, the ballet school. They did a recital of their end of the year or whatever recital that they do, but because of the virus, nobody could attend. So they videotaped it. So what they're looking to do is they want to have 90 cars, which is all their students and their family and their cars, attend a showing on a drive-in movie screen that they can park in the parking lot, gets out of their cars, and they can watch the recital as a group, and it's going to last about 90 minutes. And they were asked if, they were asking to do this up at Calverton Links. So in a situation like that, I would be willing to, A, allow it, and B, maybe waive some of the fees for them to do this, because again, if we're giving money back for events that were canceled, we should be able to help ones that couldn't do it and are trying to do it now. So I would be in favor of helping them out and allowing them to have that event, being that it meets all the mandates and
Okay.
the setbacks and parking every other stall or however they're gonna set up. They said they have parking for 200 cars, I believe, over 200 cars up there. So they can do the 90 vehicles, everybody stays inside, and there will be, bathrooms will be available.
Now, and I did talk to him a few times,
Her, Christiana?
but I was talking to someone else who was representing her. And of course, they're great, I love having Peconic Ballet in our downtown area, and the idea is great, but what he had told me was, I told him he had to do the 255 form, and I thought he had said they weren't able to do the long form. They would be the long form,
There's only
correct?
one form now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one form.
Oh,
What?
well, maybe he went online to do it, so is
It's available online.
okay.
Yeah.
So
The
that was-
biggest
I don't know if
concern
you've
is the
talked to him
fact that
since.
there's not enough days with,
Right.
if they applied for it, because they're looking to do it early July.
Mhm.
And if there's not enough days, and they don't want to get hit with a late fee and all this other
Right.
stuff, so that's where I think we could help them out.
Yeah,
Or we
it's
should help them out.
COVID-related anyway.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
And
Yeah.
drive-in movies were in phase two.
Yes.
We can hold them now here in
Mhm.
Riverhead, and I know that the bid and the chamber are working on
Right.
that.
Right.
And I just wanna make another note on what you're talking about with the drive-in. On Monday, it came down from the state that, our graduations can occur as long as there's no more than 150 individuals, so they can occur outside.
Mhm.
And, I understand, I spoke to the, superintendent on the day I got the, Monday, Sunday, whenever we got the word on it, and, of course, she was very excited, so they're gonna they're gonna hold graduations over the course of 3 days.
Mhm.
So it'll be 150, 150, and 150, and, we were very excited then, that now, our graduates, our Blue Waves are gonna be able to have their day.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that I agree with, that we need to help these people, and if it's, shortening the time period to 2 weeks rather than 45 days for the amount of people, or 90 days, or 6 months, that we need to do that. I think that, any event that has alcohol, obviously, there's a lot more involved. I think the sketch plan has to be COVID-19 related, where they show the spatial distances between the cars and the parking areas and things of that. So we might have to put together some guidelines, like similar to what planning did for the outdoor dining, for the special permit applications. Cause I know that Halleckville wants to have the bluegrass band there, and they wanna have people sitting in the cars, and they wanna have, the band on the stage playing, with their separation distances, but let people come and, sit in the back of their trucks and listen to music and picnic out, stuff like that. So I think that shortening the time frame, doing a fast track application, and with the sketch plan, provided that there's no alcohol being served or things of that nature, where we require liability policies and everything else, especially if it's on private property.
Right, I think this is a family event, and when they first started out, this group was originally looking at town property, so then they switched over and found this other space, which I think is great for them anyway. And, yes, I would be in favor of trying to get it moved along, I think it's a good thing, and we do have to take into account what people have gone through
Okay.
with the COVID,
So for Hallettville also, for,
Yes.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yes.
great.
Jody, just on a side note, the, I believe it's in the 311 reports, the SLA lessens some of the restrictions.
Okay.
So we might wanna, it may not have come out yesterday, this morning, probably the 7-Eleven, sorry, 311 report, so let's catch up on that, but from what I understand, they lessened the restrictions substantially.
Okay.
And it might not apply to Hallettville, but it might apply somewhere else.
Governor
maybe
might be on
across
right
it.
now changing things again.
Yeah,
as
yes,
we
that's
speak.
how we hear it.
I know, I know.
We talk about it, we have all
Right.
these conferences, some of it goes up the food chain, and I watch the governor, and then you get in the 311
Right.
report. That's the way it is, and, we can't change that, that's the whole
Nope.
county, and that's the whole state, so,
It's a moving process.
it is.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it,
Yeah.
and actually, I've been, generally happy with the leadership of the governor, I think he really stepped it up and has been strong throughout this, but, I think that, it's ever-changing. This is certainly not something we can predict anything.
No.
Yeah, well, the nursing home situation, there are a lot of people have problems with, and, those
The nurse-
of,
yeah.
those nursing homes, and, if they're watching, we're with you, and, I'm glad that got cleared up to a certain extent. Okay, moving forward,
Thank you,
Chris-
Carol.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Chris Kent, 331 East Main Street, Sequa, EAF, Kent, Murphy, and Bergman. Is Kent here?
No, and actually, I requested to put this on, I'm gonna take off my mask, cause I can't wear my glasses and my mask, so maybe we can, if you guys maybe move down, I don't wanna be not doing it right.
6 feet away from her.
I can't, when I wear my glasses and my mask, it gets
You're good.
fogged up.
I mean, they say when you have a mask on, you can really be essentially right next to a person. It's when you're not wearing a mask that you're supposed to be 6
Right.
feet apart.
But, and exactly, and there's a lot of confusion, let's clear that up, Jody. Great point you make. CDC protocol, DOH protocol, we're only relating the information. If you can't be 6 feet apart, you wear a mask.
So I was thinking in the interest of time, I did put this on the agenda. I have very serious concerns about neg decking a project such as this. So, I did write up my concerns. I did go over and talk with Greg about my concerns in a broad sense. I went over the day after, and I went over another day. I spoke to you on the phone. But I thought, to keep things moving along, I'll go through what my concerns are. I did get an opportunity to look over pretty much everything. I looked at the, EAF, and then the EAF got amended yesterday. I looked at the resolution, I looked back over some of the previous studies that were done on other projects. And so I have comments based on all of that, so I thought I would, start off, and then if you wanna talk about your reasoning for neg decking, and then at the end, I would like to, just make some concluding remarks that I have.
Can I just add before you start, Catherine, where is the attorney on this? Should,
It's on Zoom.
oh, he is on Zoom. I do make sure that we follow the protocol when we talk about a planning project, that the representative is there. He is on Zoom. Great.
It might be good if they identify themselves so that people.
Yes, can you identify who's on Zoom here? Well, guys,
Gotta unmute him.
unmute,
Okay.
unmute.
And I'm gonna reiterate that the things I wanted to discuss today really were on the part of the town, the EAF, which is part 2 and 3, which is the part that the town does. Certainly, if we are referring to the EAF part 1, that would be the applicant. But my questions were with how we are doing things within the town, and my questions were not with the applicant. And, I understand that it's their project and they wanna be there, but it was a surprise to me that an hour within me speaking to the planning department, that the applicant, was aware and reached out to me that they were, you know,
Okay,
wanted to be
so-
part of the work session, so
Okay,
I'm,
so let me
so-
make this very clear. A work session is a work session that is open to the public. And if you're gonna discuss a matter, the applicant should be made aware that there is gonna be a discussion.
And I said,
And
I
that is
under.
a protocol
right.
that's practiced across, and let's not go back and forth, Catherine. We have the applicant here, we're following the protocol. You called the discussion, and now the floor is yours. Let's go forward.
No, hold on, I had already just said that I understood that. I
Okay,
understood
great.
that the applicant has a right, and if I were an applicant,
Okay,
you know,
good.
I would wanna be listening in, but,
Okay, so let's go
but
forward.
I'm talking. But
Good,
it
I
is
understand.
between, me, my concerns are with what we're doing in the town.
Great, and with that,
So-
that's why we're here.
Okay, before we go on, Chris, can you hear us? We cannot hear you.
Oh,
Can't hear you.
He's unmuted.
try again.
But-
Yeah, we did.
What about Bobby?
I mean, he's speaking, so he's unmuted.
Do you know sign language?
I do.
Chris, you're just complimenting, me on my hairstyle, right?
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and begin, maybe you can work on that. So, first I wanted to start off because, this is for the public and we work for the public. I wanna let the public know that the discussion today is in reference to an apartment building that is proposed on 331 East Main Street where the old Subway was. On May 28th, our planning aide, Mr. Bergman, presented a staff report on this project to the board. And at that time, he also recommended that the board assume lead agency and issue a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA.
Devin, do we have a phone number for him?
On that date, I did say at the work session that I wanted to discuss it further and look into why the neg deck was recommended. I feel that my role as lead agency is a very important role. I take it very seriously. This is a decision that will impact our community for years to come, generations to come, and there are grave concerns within our community about projects in the DC1 area. So this isn't, I'm certainly not alone in being concerned about projects that are going into the DC1 area, and we have a lot of projects coming into that small area. After the work session, as I said, I did meet with Mr. Bergman and brought up some of my concerns. I requested the EAF on the environmental assessment form, and that was emailed to me. I planned on working on it over the weekend, but I did only receive part 1. On Monday, I did get parts 2 and 3, but it did concern me that when I got, the recommendation was made to us on the 28th of May, and the part 2 and 3, which the recommendation is based on that work, part 2 and 3 were dated June 1st. The New York State Quality Review, or as we refer to it, SECRA, requires that every state and local agency in New York give equal consideration to environmental protection, human and community resources, economic factors, when considering proposed actions such as adopting land use, subdividing land, issuing a variance, and these type of things. Whenever an agency makes a discretionary decision on an action that may affect the, SECRA is when an agency makes a discretionary decision on an action that may affect the environment. Actions can be categorized as type 1, type 2, or unlisted, and this project is a type 1 action. And since it's a type 1 action, and also I want people to realize that since it's recommended for neg deck, that means no further environmental studies will need to be done. An agency's neg deck must show in writing the reasons why the identified environmental impacts will not be significant. Therefore, an environmental impact statement, EIS, will not be required. When the SECRA process is done, it provides a comprehensive assessment of proposed actions in order to avoid or reduce significant adverse environmental impacts while meeting the social and economic needs of the community. That's if the SECRA is done. As someone who does their homework, I looked over all of these parts, and I want to start by calling attention to the fact, which is very important, that 203-213 East Main, which is the Sears property, was given a positive declaration, and they are currently in the process of studying all these impacts. As part of their study, they also look at this project, Riverview Lofts. They look at the three projects together and the cumulative impacts. In the resolution that we passed to POSDEC their project, I want to bring up some potential impacts that were listed as reasons that we were POSDECing this other project, because I think it matters, because a lot of the impacts are the same. 1, construction in areas adjacent to the Peconic River and Peconic Bay. 2, expansion existing wastewater treatment infrastructure. 3, critical environmental resources including the Peconic River watershed. 4, noise and vibration impact on the surrounding area near the proposed construction. 5, consistency with land use plan based on the adopted DC1 zoning use district. 6, community character and its short and long-term social, economic impacts and growth-inducing impacts on area land uses. 7, the combined adverse impacts to local roads due to traffic increases on local and state roads, New York 25. The continued proliferation of new residential construction in the downtown urban renewal area that does not provide adequate parking. This was on the basis of that we used to give a POSDEC to this other project. So in looking over all of these things, I came up with some impacts that I am concerned about. Cumulative impacts. According to the SECRA law, we must take, and this is the most important one for me of everything, and this is overreaching for everything. We must take a hard look at the cumulative impact of the projects that are in close proximity to each other. No matter the size of the project, the impacts are the same. Looking at each of these projects in isolation would be segmentation, which is not allowed by SECRA law. The project may be less apartments, but the impacts someone said to me, oh, well, there's 38 apartments in this building and 170 in this building. But the impacts are the same, and they all come together. Impacts such as traffic, parking, dewatering, people using the parks. Traffic thoroughfare. Certainly I'm concerned because this will disrupt traffic to a town-wide park, the Riverfront Park. This will be a problem in that area. I think it's going to be difficult for people at the Turquoise Grill. Circulation of traffic should be mitigated now. I have not seen that any traffic studies were done on this. And there were some concerns about the aquarium. I think perhaps they may have worked those out. Parking is always a concern in our town. 21 stalls will be taken away. I'm wondering how long those stalls will be taken away. What assurances are we getting because it's town property? At another point in history, the town of Riverhead allowed one entity to use one of our parking lots, I think in Jamesport, for staging, and the equipment was so heavy it collapsed part of the parking lot. What's happening here is a private company is going to be using town property. Also, we have a parking study. I don't know how all of this relates to our parking study. The impacts of piled drivings. Certainly, there is a concern about the vibration in the piled drivings, and if you want to find out about it, you can simply Google it, and the stories will come up. Because as we all know, there was a problem with the piled drivings at the Gallo project. So this is a known problem in Riverhead. It was suggested, I think Councilwoman Giglio suggested a fallback driver, that we monitor it and then have a fallback driver, but it is not feasible to change something like that midstream. That's something that would need to be mitigated ahead of time. There's dewatering that has to happen. Dewatering is used for the pile drivings, and dewatering is used for other things such as utilities. Where is the dewatering going? Where is the dewatering going? I believe it goes into the Peconic River. So at what point does it go into the Peconic River? What is the quantity of the water going in, and what is the quality of the water that will be going into our Peconic River? Also, we're in a floodplain. We're in a floodplain area there. On the ground floor, one thing that is in our code is that the district is to allow, maintain, and foster traditional downtown character along Main Street with a pedestrian-friendly, seascape active floor areas. My question, I did not like in the Conifer building, it was just glass, and from what I'm seeing here, again, it's glass. This is supposed to be a walkable area. Visual impact is very important to projects. There's been a lot of concerns about that in the downtown area. The visual impact, the mass and density and visual impact of a building make a difference, especially it's in a historic district. People have said to me, well, this project is 1 floor less. It's only 4 stories when we could do 5. It's only 4 stories, but it's also only 22 inches different. This project is 58 feet, I believe, 2 inches, and by code, they can do 60 feet. So this isn't a huge difference. And as far as visual impacts, didn't we want to open up the vistas to the river in Riverhead? You know, we're going to be putting quite a few taller buildings along there, blocking the views of the river. Economic evaluation. What is the cost analysis? The applicants have said that they intend to take tax abatements, to request tax abatements. I think we need to look at the combined cost of the tax abatements of all the projects in the area. If a cost analysis is done, that would be helpful. We also, what is the benefit to our community for this project? Those are answers that we need to know. You know, what we're giving them a tax abatement, but what are we getting from this project as a community? Is a housing project critical to the economy of Riverhead? These are things we would want to know, and these are things that I didn't find any of that in there. Sewer. What is the remaining quantity of the downtown sewer allocation, and how does this proposed project impact that allocation? This is another area where we need to look at the cumulative impacts of the downtown sanitary. Park and recreation. It really is, you know, I serve on the recreation advisory, and it was really quite appalling to me when I found out that these downtown projects did not pay into the park and rec fees. They're supposed to be paying a portion in for recreation and for parks to our town. I mean, if you're living in an apartment, you don't have a backyard. So more than ever, you need to go to the parks. And I did not see something in here about the park and recreation fees. Downtown dwellers, as I said, downtown dwellers actually place a greater impact on existing town recreational resources because of the limited areas within their building. And once again, as I mentioned, 203, 213 East Main, the Munchnick project, he's having to, because he was POSDEC'd, he's in the middle of a study and it's not finished. We should be thinking about what their analysis will reflect, and frankly, this seems to me like this sets us up for legal issues when we are POSDECing one project and neg-decking another project that is very close. And a lot of the impacts are the same. I did talk about the driving and the vibration. I just had some more on that. Once again, we're all well aware of the cracks in the church and the home. Do we have any reports on buildings that are in close proximity to this that might be affected by the pile drivings? On waterways, when I looked at it, parts of the EAF contradict each other. Part 1 says there are no impacts, that it's not near the water, and yet Part 2 talks about fishing in the Peconic. So those things contradict. So I have a couple of other things I want to add at the end, but those are some of my concerns that I have looked at. Oh, just back on the combined impacts. Don't know how, once again, I don't know how the town board can issue a neg deck on 331. It seems to me like it's how can planning say this is not a segmented review? Or make a determination of significance when the data collected from Munchnick is incomplete and unreliable. Those are some of my concerns. I have some things to conclude, but I certainly want to give you guys an opportunity to chime in here.
Okay, before we proceed, are we back online? Apparently.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I can.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, that was on your end, because I didn't have to change anything. Apparently Devin got it fixed.
Yeah, we had, cable was having some issues today, and now they had to reset us. However, you can watch this meeting on, it's being live streamed, and eventually, in a day or so, it'll go online and you can watch the meeting. And, we wanted to make sure that, as the applicant, you're here, initially, this was just gonna be a discussion, and some people have recommended, or one person recommended that you not be part of it, and any work discussion that we have from this moment on, we will have the applicant present if they choose to. And,
Yeah, I really appreciate that, because, in hearing the opening comments that were just made, that's exactly what we went through about a year ago. All of those issues were raised, have been raised. The key issue for an initial review is what's called thresholds.
Wait a minute, this is where I'm confused. I did
Yeah.
not say I had a problem with the applicants being here, but my questions, and I put it on here and I was very clear about it, my questions are to the people in our planning department.
No, that's
This is
okay.
who
No, I
this is-
understand, but
this is who I
definitely
have
this
that's
impacts.
So I wanna give our planning department an opportunity to respond here. I certainly,
You will have that
I have
opportunity.
never said.
This is my meeting, okay? Let's get this forward. Let the applicant
And let me
respond.
remind you, I am elected.
So am
I
I.
am elected
Let-
by the people.
Okay.
The people want me to bring things up.
You should
This is
also act
something, I'm talking,
professionally.
this is something that's
You
very
have a
important to our
personal
community.
interest in this case,
and I-
and you need to remove yourself
What
from
person?
it.
I have no idea what
Yes,
you're talking about.
Okay, obviously you don't.
No, I don't.
Let's just give the
No,
applicant.
no, I'm sorry, you need to that's a pretty
Okay,
broad,
move
that's a,
forward, move forward.
what are you talking
Mr.
about?
Kent, can you make a quick statement, and then we're gonna have the planning board answer Ms. Kent?
No, wait a minute.
Councilwoman.
You just threw out an accusation. I can't
Miss-
even imagine what
You
kind of
are
personal
emotional.
interest.
It seems like you're, from what I'm seeing.
Folks,
you
maybe discuss this after the meeting. Can we
Exactly,
move on,
not
please,
here.
with town business?
Right, so.
Yeah,
not here.
can I speak? I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just saying these issues are good issues.
Okay.
They are issues that were identified when we first submitted the application. Everything you brought up is right on point as far as reviewing a project. You first must establish whether you are exceeding a threshold. That's an important word in SECRA. And I believe that many of the thresholds, of the issues that you've identified, we do not exceed thresholds. So that is something that we should take up. I'm sure Jeff can speak to that. Many thresholds are established by the size of your project and the number of units you're proposing. We're proposing 36 units. We are proposing also, just to let you know, that as far as the visual impact, it was brought up at the ARB. We did remove some of the frontage of the, based on the recommendations and the requests made by the ARB. We set back the fourth floor along Main Street. So that setback does cause the building to have much less visual impact from Main Street. So that was something that was taken up. But most of those issues, I didn't have your letter in advance, so I'm not going to be able to tick off every single issue. But I think Jeff could go through the neg deck resolution, which I believe addresses many, if not all of those issues. And
Okay, great.
there's no variance required here. So I'm not sure, you made reference to a variance.
That
There-
was just in reference to how SECRA's done. That was not, I was just
Right.
talking from the SECRA handbook. That was not in reference to this project. And if these issues were addressed, one of my concerns is there's not documentation. I don't see documents that back up statements that are made. And on something of this much of an importance, I think there should be documentation. As far as the visual impact is also based on the mass and density of the building on a small lot.
I thought that we had gone over the renderings at a work session last year, and that the town board made several changes, including dropping the building down. It had gone to landmarks, there was an overhang that they pulled back to not create the visual of, like, the fourth floor, where you could barely see the fourth floor from Main Street. I thought, Catherine, I thought that we all agreed that the renderings were good.
Okay, and let me just say, I'm not against the project. My problem is, a project of this size should be properly studied. And it has to be studied, and when you're putting other projects right within a few blocks of each other, you have to, you are supposed to be looking at these projects together, and all the cumulative impacts. Otherwise, it's segmentation.
All right, at this point, can I jump in and address
Sure.
some of the comments? 'Cause
Before Greg, you start, and I want Bob to be part of this discussion, because segmentation is a legal term. And I want Bob to be a part of this, and Bob, if you could come up and also help me address this. There is no segmentation in this case.
But I confirmed that. One of the things is you have to look at these projects, you can't look at them in isolation. The
Right.
people the traffic, it's all coming in together.
All right, Catherine, I've heard you, and I'm trying to respond to you. And I'm gonna have Bob explain it also from a legal standpoint, because you're talking about a legal word. Bob is our town attorney. This is not segmentation under SECRA. You cannot look at a project and say, oh, because there's a building going on next to me, I have to study that project and the other project up and down the street, that they have no vested interest in. They are not a stakeholder, they're not an owner of it, you cannot do that. And Bob is going to talk to that. This is not segmentation.
That would be something that the master plan would look at, as far as the traffic study and traffic flows and things of that nature, based on the zoning that's being proposed, or should have been done actually when the master plan was adopted in 2004, and there was no traffic plan or study essentially on parking downtown or anything else like that. So it's,
Jeff,
do you
just for-
own any other properties on Main Street?
No,
Okay.
no.
Jeff,
By
just
the
for
way,
clar-
this is not segmentation at all. And as far as, this is all within what's approved by the DC1 zoning. So we're in a DC1 zoning district. You have a DC1 zoning, you have a town code that provides for dimensional regulations for properties within the zoning. We don't even come up to the maximum allowed under zoning. The maximum floor area ratio in this district is 4.0, and we are around 2.5.
Okay, Mr. Katz,
So,
Mr.
talk
Katz,
about, wait, can we just,
2.86.
can I just, please, I listened to everything that was said. Massing is measured by floor area, okay? Including, and visual impact. So we softened the visual impact by setting back the fourth floor, and the floor area ratio is 2.5, when a maximum allowed floor area ratio in downtown is 4.0. That means you're allowed 4 times the amount of square footage of your lot. And we're building 2.5 times the amount of square footage of our
Okay,
lot.
Mr. Kang, if you, just hold any further thoughts you have. We need to get a little control of this meeting here and not repeat everything. I think that we have to address the segmentation issue, because that's a very serious concern when regarding SEQA. So we need to have our town attorney to give us guidance on that, and we all know what it is, but we needed to have it officially established legally. And then I want to give the planning board the ability to present,
Planning
and then
department.
we'll come back to you.
Planning
Perfect?
department.
Great.
Planning department.
That's where we're going. We need to get control here. Our attorney, Robert Kosakevich, and then, the planning board will follow, and then
Planning
Mr.
department.
Katz will follow thereafter. Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's just, just gotta be a clear distinction, planning department versus planning board. Planning board has nothing to do with this application in any
Yes.
way, shape, or form.
Robert Kozakevich, Town Attorney. Question has come up about segmentation, whether projects need to be reviewed and all the cumulative impacts need to be analyzed. And I know that we look at the seeker handbook for guidance. We also need to look at the case law. And the two that come to mind immediately to me are the matter of Valmont Homes, which is a Riverhead case. And it's a significant one because if you go back to it, it involved an allegation brought by, I believe it was one of the environmental groups challenging an approval given to Valmont Homes, which is now the East End Commons, the condominiums that are behind us. In that challenge, they asserted that because there were a number of different projects that were all within the Mill Creek estuary system, they all needed to be analyzed together. The court said, no, you're wrong. You don't have to analyze them. There's not a segmentation or cumulative impact analysis that's necessary because they're not dependent upon one another. In other words, the one project, which was not Valmont, or a couple other projects which were not Valmont's, they didn't have the same common ownership. One was not dependent upon the other. They were proceeding on their own and they were independent of one another. That's the one case. The second one that's probably a little more significant was Pine Barrens Society, where they looked to challenge, I think it was a couple of hundred different projects in the Pine Barrens, saying they all had to be analyzed because they were all within the Pine Barrens region. I believe it was Justice Baisley who said, no, again, you're incorrect. There's no need to do that. Again, because of the reasons set forth in seeker, all the prongs weren't there, and therefore you did not have to do that cumulative impact analysis because it was not impermissible segmentation. Those are the two that I can think of right off the top of my head. I mean, certainly I could go back and do a memorandum and further research if the board desires, but off the top of my head, those are the two that immediately come to mind.
And thank you, everybody, for your comments on that. Thank you, Bob. And I would like you to look into that further. And, you know, just for clarification, I will call the DEC and look into this as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Just for clarification, Jefferson, could you let the residents know that are watching that just because building A is built next to building B, one has nothing to do with the other. One could be pos-decked, one could be neg-decked. You have to compare apples to apples in order to make the assumption that 4 doors down was pos-decked, so this one should be also. There's no correlation between that whatsoever with seeker, as far as I know.
That was going to be the next point I made before I turned it over to Greg Bergman. 203-20213 East Main Street was pos-decked. And the reason why it was pos-decked is that was a 5-story building, 177 units, as opposed to the 36 being proposed here, as opposed to the 4-story building here. It's 5 times the size, scale, and mass of what's being proposed today. Yes, the issues are the same, traffic,
Right.
water, but the scale and magnitude of what's being proposed with that project are far outweigh what's being proposed in this project. So it's not a fair characterization to say because we pos-deck this very, very large project, that every other project that comes in below what's allowed in zoning should also be pos-decked. That's a very broad statement to make, and it's not, respectfully to the councilman's opinion and position, not a fair one to make, because the applicant has listened to what this town board and the community has had to say about what kind of development we want in this area. They came in voluntarily from the get-go with a building that's smaller and shorter than what the zoning allows. So,
And providing their on-site parking.
and providing their own site parking.
Where the 170 units was not, correct?
They're providing some, but not to this degree.
In addition, the process is lengthier.
And the EIS is lengthier.
If you pos-deck it, it's much lengthier.
Yes.
You have 36 stories, much smaller, providing parking and all the needs that we have. So you go to the neck deck.
But
And
and that's the thing.
your decision to make.
And I don't mean to disrespect Catherine and all the issues she raised, but it's staff's and the department's position that we've addressed all the things that she's identified.
Mhm.
We've prepared an 11-page negative declaration resolution for your consideration.
Has she read that?
Yes, and by
Okay.
the way, I did look at one of the other studies, I read over that last night, it's 41 pages. So, and I disagree on all fronts. I disagree that these projects don't matter to each other. This is a small area that you are putting a lot of massive projects into. How could they not relate to each other? That, I disagree with
Is
that.
the
I disagree
170
with that remark.
Is the 170 unit project even going, I mean, when was the last time they submitted anything?
we've been communicating with them over the past few months. The problem they have is that they have not come up with a building design that complies with the New York State Fire Code.
Okay.
So that's the reason why you have not seen it back. They changed architects as of a month or two ago because they could not comply with the fire code requirements. So
So
they
let-
had to go back to the drawing board.
And it's also a much larger piece of property.
Yes.
So let's just look a minute to it, your statement that, you know, this thing that one is 30, I think one was 38
36.
apartments.
36.
36 apartments, and I think the other one now is 170. There's still, you know, the impacts, most of the impacts are still the same. Let's look at economic impact. If this building's asking for IDA benefits and this building's asking for IDA benefits, those economic benefits, those go together. Those are combined impacts. How about dewatering? You're dewatering for one project and you're dumping it in the Peconic River. You're dewatering for a project next door and you're dumping it into the Peconic River. The fact that they're by each other absolutely matters, and it isn't as big a deal really that they are different sizes. It all has to be looked at together. And that's why Munchnick is being required to do this study where he is looking at all three of those projects together. Why is he having to do all of that and this is nothing?
All right,
Okay,
at this point, can I run through the part three?
Move forward, and if there's gonna be further discussions that can be done individually, let's have the planning board, we have to vote on this, and we have, you know, collectively, the public is watching, and we need to move our meeting forward, address this, move into executive session, and not go into, 45 minutes of one, back and forth. Just make your presentation, and I need to end this topic, and I need to move on to the discussion. Go
And
ahead, Greg.
I think Catherine brings up some, obviously valid concerns, and you've done your homework, but I think that they've already addressed that, and the applicant has asked those questions, and they have come back with the answers, which is what prompted the negative declaration under SECRA, because they have to show compliance with SECRA. And the visual impacts were addressed by the town board at a work session last year where we all agreed that we liked the way it looked after it came back from Landmarks and ARB, Catherine. And I will roll back the videotape to last year when they came before us with the renderings, and you liked it.
I'm not against the project. I'm against the fact that our town moves forward without properly studying things. And the people in the town ought to know that. That's ridiculous, especially in the downtown area. And as far as, I'm not interested in having a back and forth. But for me to, I have every right to present. And this is a very important topic. So I certainly will not be silenced on this.
Okay, no one is asking you, but it cannot be
I will not be silenced
a
on this,
long-term,
Supervisor.
and this area was observed, and we're moving forward. We need to have the planning speak.
All right, so I appreciate that, Councilwoman Kent. I'm sensitive to your concerns. Let me just go through a brief history of this, and I promise I'll make it as short and succinct as possible. My initial staff report on this project was prepared on September 4th, 2019. This project was reviewed by the town board at its meeting on September 12th, 2019, and then came back 2 weeks later on September 26th, 2019. My initial staff report identified the following issues that must be studied under SECRA: visual impacts and consistency with the surrounding area, traffic circulation, impacts to the Riverhead Sewer District, Water District, School District, impacts of pile driving vibration, and construction areas. To date, the applicant has addressed these, and what I'll do right now is I'm just going to read through the part 3 of the full EAF, which is the evaluation of the magnitude and importance of projects, impacts, and determination of significance. This basically supports the environmental review that we've done to this point and supports the position of recommending the negative declaration. So, right off the bat, the proposed construction of a 4-story, 36-unit residential apartment building is consistent with the existing zoning code within the Downtown Center 1 zoning district as established by the 2003 Town of Riverhead Comprehensive Master Plan. The proposed development of a 4-story building is less intense than what is permitted as of right within the DC1 zoning district, as the current zoning permits construction of a building up to 5 stories. The proposed development does not exceed the thresholds for creating a significant increase in existing traffic levels. This was established by the New York State DEC Full Environmental Workbook. Just for your reference, board, the full EAF is a workbook administered by the DEC, and as Mr. Kent said, it establishes thresholds for certain projects to be considered a significant increase in traffic. That full environmental workbook identifies the threshold for a multifamily residential apartment building as 100 units, which would create a significant increase in traffic. This project is 36 units, roughly 64% below what that threshold is. It's also worth noting that this project was referred to the New York State Department of Transportation, which is the agency which holds jurisdiction over the State Route 25 right-of-way. They provided a number of site plan comments, specifications on paving, that sort of thing, signage. At no point in their response did they require the preparation of a traffic impact statement. So, I mean, if the agency holding jurisdiction over State Route 25 does not require the preparation of a TIS, which they're obviously aware of the other projects going on State Route 25, I think that's a fair assessment to say, look, it's well below the threshold, and the governing agency does not require a TIS. Moving on. As a result of input from the Planning Department and Town Board, traffic circulation throughout the site was modified to remove egress onto East Main Street, which posed visibility and pedestrian safety concerns. We did receive a letter from the Riverhead Sewer District with the capacity, and it noted that it had the capacity to serve the proposed use, as indicated in the October 25th, 2019 letter. In a letter dated May 29th, 2020, the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation determined that the existing structures located at 331 East Main Street are not eligible for listing in the state or national register of historic places. The letter went on to further state that it is the opinion of the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation that the proposed project as currently designed will have no adverse impact on historic resources. The project's aesthetics have been revised based upon input from the Town Architectural Review Board, which granted preliminary approval on October 23rd, 2019. The project was reviewed by the Landmarks Preservation Commission, which issued its final recommendations dated June 9th, 2020. For the aesthetics, the LPC deferred to the comments from the Architectural Review Board based on the ARB's expertise in architectural. In order to mitigate the loss of the Norton House on site, which is a building circa 1855, the applicant has agreed to commemorate the Norton House by naming the structure the Shipyard and by documenting existing structures and placing a permanent display in the lobby to commemorate that part of the Riverhead shipbuilding industry which occurred during the second half of the 19th century. The applicant has detailed the method of construction for the subsurface foundation support elements. And Councilwoman Kent, I think it's important, you repeatedly referred to it as pile driving. Just to be clear, this project is not using pile driving. They're using a vibro aggregate pier system.
I meant vibro.
So it doesn't represent the applicant truthfully when we're calling it pile driving, because there are significantly different impacts from the two proposed methods of construction. The applicant has agreed to perform pre-construction surveys of neighboring structures and to conduct seismic monitoring systems to measure vibration levels at surrounding structures. The applicant has agreed to repair any damage to adjacent structures caused by construction of the project. And some of the things you spoke about, the condition of the parking lot, that is obviously, there will need to be temporary construction easements, which will need to be approved by the town attorney. And I'm sure the town attorney's office will ensure that the proper insurances are in place, that's properly documented, and an agreement to repair to pre-construction conditions any damage that is caused by construction. So that's the full EAF Part 3. That is our recommendation. That supports our determination of significance. I would just like to circle back because there was a lot of information presented at the beginning, so I just want to address some of those issues. Councilwoman Kent, your first comment was regarding construction areas. At the May 28th Town Board work session, I did present a construction phasing plan, which was prepared by the applicant. The Town Board did review that. That construction phasing plan, the details of that are contained within the resolution. Wastewater treatment, as I stated, we got a sewer availability letter from the sewer district. Noise and vibration, again, has been adequately addressed by the applicant. Consistency with the land use plan. As I said, this project conforms to the dimensional requirements of the DC1 zoning district, with the exception of the building lot coverage, which is why they're in for a special permit before the Town Board. Community character, Again, it was reviewed by the ARB, it was reviewed by the town board, it was reviewed by the LPC, and all three boards generally seem to be in favor of the project, especially when the applicant modified the fourth story overhang to set back that fourth story to create a less massive building on Main Street. So now they are proposing a 36-unit apartment. They are proposing 36 ground-level parking stalls. Circulation of traffic. Issues with the aquarium. I did raise at the May 28th work session issues with the bus traffic circulation. As I understand, the applicant has been in touch with representatives from the aquarium, and they have worked that out. One of the changes to the construction phasing plan is that they will leave a portion of the construction fencing movable so that the bus can come off of Main Street and drop kids off at the aquarium. Maybe the applicant can speak to it, but I know in their discussions with the aquarium representatives, the aquarium doesn't realistically expect any bus trips to the aquarium until like March or April, just based on the current COVID situation. Assurances on town property, parking study. I mean, again, so as of right, the project, if it was not in the downtown parking district, would require 54 parking stalls. They're providing 36, which is 18 short. Now, the creation of a parking district is established in order to foster development, foster a walking downtown. I mean, you know, at what point would you'd have to subject every single project to a parking study? Visual impacts have been addressed. They're not pile driving. The dewatering is required. They do have it. They have an application into the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Staff has been recommending that the obtainment of that permit be a condition of site plan approval. As far as blocking views of the river, right now, if you walk down East Main Street and you look south, if you stand in front of that site and look south, you cannot see the Peconic River. So I don't see how the construction of a building on the site would block the views of the river when it's not currently visible from Main Street.
But isn't there an alleyway also where they were originally proposing the parking up against the building and then they moved it to the other side? Am I mistaken in that there will be an open, how wide is that opening? 24 feet or is it 30 feet?
I'd have to look at the plan, but yes, as of right now, that town parking lot right of way, the parking spaces are located on the eastern side of that right of way. From the initial application, it had always proposed to move those parking stalls to the west side of that right of way.
Right, but isn't there like a cobblestone pathway from Main Street or a brick?
There is a brick walkway. It doesn't go all the way down to the Peconic, but yes, there is a brick walkway along that, along the eastern side of that town right away.
I'm just curious as to how big that opening is going to be between the town of Riverhead's parking district property and then also their brick walkway. How wide that is, that area, because I know that it's a pretty vast open space looking from Main Street down to the river.
Yeah.
Even with the cars parked there.
Yeah, I mean, I can get that.
We're not proposing any additional improvements in that other than relocating the diagonal parking to the
Yeah.
west side of the
Right.
right of way.
Right, but then
I believe
when
we're
you,
actually, there was a question earlier that Catherine had. We're actually, I believe, adding a space, one more diagonal space to the parking district parking. So we're temporarily blocking 21 spaces, but I think at the end of the project that we will be adding a space and there'll actually be a positive, a net positive.
but what I'm saying is that the applicant is improving essentially the parking spaces and moving them to the west side of the property. If they remained on the east side of the property, of our property, then it would be a brick walkway, parking, a small little space that they could back out of.
Right.
And then it would be broken up. So I thought we all agreed that it was a great idea that they were moving all the parking over to the west side because it created a much larger open space
Correct.
from Main Street
Right,
down to the river.
we'll be enhancing the pedestrian walkway down to the river walk, to the boardwalk that's on the river. You'll have a nicer entrance for pedestrians.
Right, so what is the
We've
width
also,
of
we've
that
also
actual?
suggested,
It looks to be about 5.5 feet, Councilwoman,
It's-
from the property line to the existing curb there. It's about
Right, so
5.5
then-
feet.
And do you know what the distance is from the property line to the parking
The
spaces?
parking
that-
stalls, it's 5.5 plus 19, so about 24 feet. Basically, this is gonna create, if you're walking down Main Street and if you make a turn down that parking lot right away, you're gonna have a straight shot, you're gonna have a nice vista right to the Peconic riverfront. It does, in my opinion, it does it does kind of foster a walkable sense of downtown. You're not cutting off any views that don't already exist. So yeah.
Yeah, and this was discussed extensively at the work session.
Yeah, I mean, this was brought up, again, in my September 4th, 2019 report. So this was something that was broached to the town board approximately 9 months ago.
Okay, so what's next? What do we, where do we stand?
Well, so, I mean, at this point, our recommendation hasn't changed. As Mr. Murphy stated, you know, we've written an 11-page negative declaration which details the level of review that it's undergone. It's detailed all the outside agency comments, input from ARB, Landmarks, Town Board. You know, that's where we're at.
And as far as the dewatering, because I know that for the building that's being built downtown right now, I had a really big problem with that application, but I know that there are other projects downtown that are on the south side of Main Street that didn't require dewatering. So what are we talking about as far as dewatering, and where is that water going? And what is the standard practice and protocol for dewatering?
So that is administered by the DEC. Maybe I'll let the applicant speak to it, but I believe the dewatering plan is going to be similar to the 203, 213.
No, the David Gallo project.
Yeah, I apologize. So the
Well, they put the water right into our drainage base, no?
No, they got a DEC permit to dewater and discharge directly into the Beconic River.
Right, the water goes into the Beconic River.
Okay, but
That's
And
one of
the-
my
and-
concerns.
and
But the New York
agency
State DEC
approved it.
is the one that
Right.
approves that,
Correct.
so.
Well, I was asking the quantity and the quality of the water. These are, and, you know, these are all things that would be studied. Now, I know that you're saying, well, we discussed it at work session. I don't know how the community feels, but discussing it at work session is not enough for me. I'm looking for documentation and studies. Even on the traffic, it's not enough for me to say, there was a study done somewhere else, or, we don't think the traffic's gonna be bad. If we required this, EIS to be done, there would be a traffic study that's done. So I'm looking, you know, for documentation. And you did
So
mention the
you can
easements.
vote on that now,
Easements
right?
should be done, you know, that easements are going to happen, but it
Yeah,
seems like
so let's just
things like
end
that
it
should be
and
mitigated now. That
let's
should,
just
we
get it
should have a
integrated.
plan for that.
It's a
And that's the whole
resolution that
reason
comes
to
up too,
study,
so.
properly
Yeah,
study
right, I'm
things.
just saying, so let's just
Easements
end
have
it.
always been issued as a condition of site plan approval. I mean, I've been with the town for 4 years. I've never worked on a project whereby we've incorporated temporary construction easements into a secret analysis. I mean, the applicant has provided a plan showing where the construction fences are, showing what the impacts are going to be. I've never seen anything rise to the level where we're incorporating temporary construction easements into a secret review.
Well, all of this was done, all of this is being done with the other project, which is very close by. But I'll just finish, did you want to add in, because I'm just gonna finish up.
Okay, go ahead.
There
Yeah,
was a traffic study done. We submitted it to the town. It was prepared by Stonefield. So I'm not sure if that has not been shared. I know the planning department
that
got
a-
it.
Was that
I'm
a
sure it was
traffic
taken
study
into
that was done?
consideration. I'm sure it was taken into consideration in the review of the application by the planning department. And I know you want to cut this short, and not have a complete discussion, or not to extend this discussion too long. But one of the questions you asked was, what is in it for Riverhead? This is a first of its kind project for downtown Riverhead. This is a market rate 36 unit project. It's trying to introduce people with greater disposable income to Main Street. These are people who will spend more money in town. They prefer to walk to restaurants, walk to markets, and these are people who are going to be paying market rate rent. So you're expecting these people to have greater disposable income. We do have an economic study that was prepared for the IDA. It will be submitted again. Another copy will be submitted to all of you guys if you'd like it. But these are things that are being taken up at the IDA application. So there's a report that was prepared, a market study and an economic feasibility, and it details economic impacts provided by this project being a market rate project in downtown Riverhead.
Okay.
So, and once again, my concerns, I'm not against the project. My concern is, as a town, that we don't properly study things. I mean, looking at the whole downtown area, the only project that I believe has had to do an environmental impact study is the Munchnick project. So, Summerwind didn't have to do it, I don't believe that Conifer didn't have to do it, Gallo did a voluntary one. So it's just really shocking to me, and I would like to hear from people in the community. I think our community had concerns when the Gallo building went up, and I think it's shocking that we're not fully studying this. It's not that I'm trying to stop the project or be against it, I'm trying to make sure that we get all of our answers. And also, one other thing that concerns me, this is my last thing, reading over the resolution, there are places in the resolution that we are agreeing to make changes. For example, there's a spot in the resolution where we're agreeing to change the,
Piers?
yes, the
Well-
pier, Vibro Piers, I think it's called. So when you put changes in the resolution, of things that you're going to, conditions in the resolution, that is called a condition negative declaration, which is not allowed with,
Not allowed with type 1 actions.
which is not
Correct.
allowed with a type 1 action. A condition negative declaration is a type of neg dec that is issued for certain unlisted actions. They call it a CND. A CND allows an agency to impose specific conditions outside of its routine jurisdiction to minimize identified impacts. And those are in this resolution, and they are not allowed by a type 1. So what we'd have to do is withdraw the resolution, redo the site plan, change, mitigate these things, and you can't have conditions with a type 1.
Well, it's worth noting that those are not imposed as conditions of a negative declaration.
That's
They're
correct.
written into the resolution as a recitation based on the applicant and what they've submitted, what the applicant has agreed to. So we are not issuing a negative declaration conditioned upon this. These are factors that have been vetted and agreed to by the town board.
But
You're-
they read as a conditions.
Well,
It's a condition of approval, not a condition of secret.
Well, no, the word condition is not in there at all, so they don't read as conditions. It is not issuing a negative declaration conditioned upon the foregoing. So I would just like to make that clear.
Well, I think agreeing to make changes, and that's right in the resolution, to me, that seems like conditions.
The negative declaration is addressing what the applicant provided, which is a vibration under 3.
Actually, I believe it was under 2 inches per second is generally the accepted vibration limits. This project is expected to produce a maximum of 1.7 inches at a distance of 4 feet from the probe. So they're actually, based on their geotechnical engineering report and their foundation reports that their design professionals have provided to us, they're purporting that the proposed construction will be below those thresholds, which would be generally considered to cause damage to neighboring structures.
And I'm saying that the negative declaration under secret is based on that number of 1.7, where 2 is considered significant, and that if their engineers were wrong, and engineers have been wrong in the past, but if their engineers are wrong, that we don't care, they're gonna change the mechanism. If it goes over what they're saying it's going to do, because that's what we're basing the negative declaration on. The secret is based on the information that they're giving us. If that information is found to be false, and the vibrations are greater, then they would have to switch to the other type of system,
Well,
to another type.
I just ask my fellow council members as lead agency to think very long and hard about this. This is a big, this will affect our downtown area for generations to come. And, I'm not saying stop the project, I'm saying make sure you study it properly, especially when you have all of these projects right by it.
So I did circulate an email from the Landmarks Preservation Commission to the town board and to planning staff yesterday morning, because I got it on Tuesday afternoon. So Wednesday morning, I forwarded it to all the board members. Did everybody read it?
I read it.
So what do you think about that?
You talking about the landmarks?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, I mean, I like the idea, and I did notice that they're saying it's a big cost difference. I mean, they're saying it's less expensive
They're saying it's gonna
actually
cost-
to move it, but then there are other costs
Uh-huh.
involved. But it's already in the I think it's already in the resolution that it's being demolished, it's already.
Well, they're proposing to demolish it. Again, so that issue is really a site plan issue, and that's a decision that the town board needs to decide. That's a
I-
decision. I don't think that that's secret related. We've got comments from the Office of Parks and Historic Preservation that this structure is not eligible. So I mean, if that's the conversation that the town board wants to have, I don't think that should hold up a secret resolution. I believe that's something that's, and a lot of these issues really are pertaining to site plan. I think we've done a very thorough job with this. You know, things in terms of switching parking stalls from the east side to the west side, building aesthetics, these are site plan issues.
Okay, I think we need to move on. This,
Well, I just
th-
want to
at
answer
the
Jody's
next public-
question.
excuse
I'm
me.
I would be in favor of having this discussion as a board,
Okay.
and I did read over what you sent me from Landmarks, and I also forwarded that, I got permission from Richard, and I forwarded that to the ARB and to the Downtown Revitalization.
Okay, and you can have individual conversations with the board. I think we need to move on. If the public wants to make any comments, before we adopt the resolutions at the next town board meeting, they're more than welcome. And it seems to me that this has been very well reviewed. It seems like it's in conformity with all the protocols. And next week, the public again has the right to come forward and state their comments, and the board together will vote on this issue. And thank you for your efforts today. And Mr. Kent, so long. And moving forward, highway, loose leaf pickup. Woodson.
Good morning. Did everybody
morning.
get a copy?
Of,
Copy
It's
of
on the
the,
website.
Oh.
I'll go print it, Gio.
yeah, we sent it to you yesterday.
Right. The department heads are bringing copies from you, but I'll go print it, no problem.
All right, probably back in February, we had a meeting on, issues with loose leaf pickup. And I'm sure everybody got a copy back then. I'm just gonna go over it again. Number one, the loose leaf pickup function is not a highway, function and should be funded out of the general fund, according to, David Orr, Cornell University Education. A lot of other towns have ceased to do this. Once the board found out that the highway department should be paid. If not a highway function, it should come out of the general fund. Roughly, we just did a rough estimate on what it costs us per year to do this. Roughly about $250,000 a year. Other conditions now with DEC telling us that we only have one place to dump our leaves. We believe it's going to be on Youngs Avenue, where we had temporary staging areas in Wading River and in Jamesport. The commute for one truck would probably be 20 minutes, a half hour. If we now have to dump on Youngs Avenue, you're talking maybe an hour time, round trip. One of the other issues we had in the beginning years ago when we started this, excuse me, a lot of the farmers would take the materials. Nowadays, we have one farmer that takes it in Jamesport, and depending on the weather, if we can get into his farm fields, we can't no longer dump there. We had one guy in Calverton that would take the leaves. After 3 days, he said enough's enough. He couldn't take anymore. At one point on Youngs Avenue, we were over our limit. We had an issue back behind the highway department. We had to get rid of 6,000 yards of material. We were way over our limit with the existing material that was at our Youngs Avenue facility. Luckily, we got rid of probably close to 6,000 yards of it, but we still have approximately 3,000 yards of existing material there. I went over with just now what DEC told us we need to do. Riverhead Town is the only town left doing leaf pickup because the last one about 4 or 5 years ago, East Hampton found out it's not a highway function and money should come out of the general fund. I guess the supervisor and town board decided to be done with it. I'll go to number 7. And this is just my observation. We do a leaf pickup, and then we have our garbage carters who also pick up leaves and brush. So it just kind of seems we're doing it, instead of having one person do it or one company do it, we have 2 people doing the same job. Number 8. This time of year, September, October, we're trying to get ready for winter. We're trying to get our trucks ready for winter. We're trying to do snow fence, and it's all weather related. If we get a lot of rain, I have certain days I have time to get out into the farm fields and get snow fence up. If we get heavy, so I'm trying to do that, snow fence, pick up leaves, and get equipment ready. If we continue this, being that we have to take everything to Youngs Avenue, it's going to add approximately another week, maybe even 2 weeks. So instead of doing it in 3 weeks, it's going to take us 5 weeks to do this now. Next big issue, property damage. People put leaves, they put them around hydrants, they put them around their bushes, we don't see them. Next thing you know, we're paying to do damage assessments on their property. We have neighborhood issues. I bag my leaves, my neighbor doesn't. All his leaves blow on my property or his property. Constantly going through that. Weekends, 6 o'clock to approximately 10 o'clock during leaf pickup season. Saturdays and Sundays, I take a ride around, and you'd be surprised how many landscapers are out doing jobs and dumping the leaves out in the street for us to pick up. They should be taking the leaves. According to town code, putting any debris, sticks, leaves, is against our town code. When you put leaves in the street, we get heavy rains, all the leaves run into the drains, and we have flooding issues. Some of the farmers that would take the leaves, people are putting garbage, limbs, anything they want to get rid of, and we're taking them, and then we have to go back and go through piles and pick everything out, or just pick the whole pile up and take it to Youngs Avenue and sort it out there. Safety issues. When you put your leaves out in the road, they blow around, they become wet, becomes a safety issue. "12 years since I've been highway superintendent, we've been doing leaves. It costs approximately, like I said, $250,000 a year. If we add an additional 2 weeks onto this because we have to transport the leaves further, it could be up to $400,000 a year for us to do this job. Some recommendations. Southampton Town residents over 70 would get a permit, and they would be able to get their leaves picked up. Everybody else, either you get a carter to pick them up or bag them. That time of year, maybe the town can look into also free drop-off for Riverhead residents at our landfill. Should have a fee, if a commercial company wants to come in, have a fee for them to dump at our area. Being said, like I said, on the weekends for 5 or 6 weeks, 7 weeks, I'm out riding around and I'm constantly catching landscapers dumping leaves out into the road. Our leaf pickup starts roughly about Thanksgiving. We have people putting leaves out in October, so they're sitting there for months. That's all I have to say on it.
Now, I lived in Southampton, and I have a lot of friends, family, and I know that they start fall leaf pickup. They start them at the first week of December, and that hasn't changed. They do it once. There is no brush pickup in Southampton. And I think there are other towns that have curbside, loose, and their program is a little shortened. They just administer it throughout the course of a week or two. So is it possible that you can look at what the other towns are specifically doing? Most of it is online, and see if we can come up with a medium, because and Councilwoman had mentioned it in the last meeting, we're getting a lot of residents want their leaves picked up, and it's something that we have to come up with a happy medium somewhere along the line, instead of just, it's over, we can't do it. If we're backed up and we can't drop our leaves, you're saying that we should also owe you money to pick them up, right? You know, to fund it. So if we fund it, where is it gonna go? I'm just a little confused.
If you fund it, if
Okay.
you pay the highway department to do it, now we have to find a place to put the leaves.
Okay.
Only concern with that is we're at our capacity now at our debris area. So, and I'm just taking a guess, maybe we do 5,000, 6,000 yards of leaves. We are way over our limits at the debris area.
So I did ask the town engineer this question, and they sent me an email back on Friday, June 5th, saying, from our town engineer, I would like to clarify that if either highway or engineering facilities exceed 3,000 cubic yards consistently, the worst thing that will happen is that the DEC will force the violating facility to register. And I also did obtain a copy of a permit from 2011 from the town attorney's office that we were permitted to put 10,000 cubic yards of leaves and what have you in the yard waste facility. So he goes on to say, there is no cost involved to register the facility. Annual reports are required consisting of the 5 forms. The DEC also periodically inspects the registered facility. However, the facility is permitted to throughput 10,000 cubic yards with a registration. Both of our facilities were registered until last year, when our registrations were waived by the DEC because our throughputs were less than 3,000 cubic yards annually. I registered both facilities and completed annual reports for both facilities. I was also responsible for the DEC waiving the registration requirements for both facilities, and because he indicated that we were having less than 1,000 yards in each facility. So when you said that we're over our limit, 6,000 yards at our debris area currently, 3,000 yards is the max, he's saying that we've never had more than 1,000 yards, and he can't imagine it tripling. And he's also saying, you're saying the fine is $3,500 per day. I've asked the town attorney to provide me with those violations and fines, and they're saying that they can't find any. And the town engineer is saying they don't give you a fine, they just make you register the facility.
That's what I was told as far as fines could be fined. The other thing is, let's say we do leaf pickup this year, 4,000, 5,000 yards, and we take them up there. We're not getting rid of them, so for the next 5 years, what are you doing with these leaves?
What did we do for 12 years? I think I see here.
The 12 years.
So what are we doing, what was going on in 12 years?
12 years, we've been taking them to a guy in Calverton, and the farmer in Jamesport has been gracious to take leaves. The problem is, that time of year, we get a lot of wet weather. And like I said, I have to balance my snow fence with picking up leaves. So a lot of times on rainy days, we can't even get into the farmers' fields to dump.
I think that this is the 4th time you came to us and talked to us about leaves. I did get a couple people, I know people enjoy the service of having the leaves picked up, but I do think we're gonna have to make a decision on this. since this is the fourth time I think we talked about it. And there are some ideas here, but, and just talking about where to dump them, I think Frank had said in the meeting that the farmers.
Yeah, we used to take it until our capacity was
Right.
lessened as well. But one of the things I like about a creative solution to this is if we can get the capacity in Young's Avenue over, say, 5,000 or 6,000, which you anticipate getting in, and then just stage it there until, say, frozen ground, or say until the winter time, and then offer it to either the farmers while the ground is frozen so that they can get it out into their fields. That might be a way to get around actually having to go into their fields when it is wet. I don't know, but we should start to think outside the box.
We
Well,
can definitely get more capacity.
This has
at
been
the-
going on for years, and that's a possibility.
Yeah.
The point is, what we need to do is restructure this. You gotta stop the landscapers. When this was started, it was for the Joe guy that rakes his lawn and puts it out there. And like I said, on the weekends I go ride. 50% of the people I see got landscapers doing their yard. And they're putting it out for us to pick up. That's one of the issues I have with it. There's nobody watching who's doing what.
I haven't seen that, but I haven't seen that. I haven't seen landscapers pushing it out into the street. And if I did, I would call code enforcement and they would be writing tickets because it is
I can
against
tell
our
you
town
a
code.
guy right now on Warner Drive I catch every year.
So do you call code enforcement?
I notify the proper authorities on it. The point, this is just who you catch. I know you probably want to do it, but you know what? I've been saying this for 6 years, and it hasn't moved at anything. Other towns have their own facilities. They have the machinery. They grind everything up. They've been doing it for years. We still haven't got to that stage yet of doing our own thing. We're just doing it, and then hopefully next year it'll all go away, or we'll figure something out. But I think it's this year what we need to do is just look at everything I've given you and work on that. If you guys want to pay the highway department, fine. But it's kind of hard with 30 guys, and I got guys on vacation. And now you're adding probably another week, maybe 2 weeks on pickup, and you're trying to get all these things done. Something's, you get early snowfall, and like I said, the first thing is you got to stop putting them out in the streets. You got to put them on the side of your yard. There's no control. It's out of control right now.
I agree with Catherine, we need to come up with a.
Put up the resolution
Yes.
and let it vote.
I think
Take it to a vote.
this is one of those hard decisions that we have to make. I mean, certainly, we don't want to. People want this, but if we can't do it, we can't do it. But it would be good if we have a plan.
I just put it up for a vote. I
We
mean,
haven't had a
Catherine, you and
plan
Gio are both saying
in-
it's come before us several times.
We
so
haven't
put it
had a
up for vote.
plan, and I've been bringing it up 6 years.
Well, I think if we're gonna put it up for a vote, we have a plan of what we're going to do. I mean, we can't just, I don't feel like we should just stop it and say, that's it, good luck. Find a place to put your leaves. We have to kinda have a plan for the community. I
That's
mean,
why I'm
saying
bringing it up.
This topic keeps coming up. We are gonna have to make a decision, as hard as it is.
Well, Catherine, why don't you take the lead and come up with, possible alternatives?
I mean, the town engineer said we could increase our capacity on the north and south side of Youngs Avenue to take in additional leaves, so, and we have been working with Crown and they can, we could probably work out something with them that they can mulch it, so,
Have you seen their yard lately?
oh,
Maybe,
Yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to work with you on
I
that.
feel like we could
Yeah.
all kind of work on this.
Yeah.
I think that, we could all bring ideas to the table and come up with solutions, but, we
Well,
can't keep just talking about it and not doing something.
It definitely, you need to have somebody out there enforcing things, people would,
Well, that's the issue
it's
with a lot
just
of
getting
stuff.
out of control. You're gonna have code enforcement out on the weekends watching people? It's just getting to a point where, we need to do something about it.
We actually are gonna have code enforcement out on the weekends coming up when we fill the 2 spots coming up. So they will be available in the fall to do
Yeah,
that.
we need them 24/7 on the weekends, in the evenings. I mean, if nobody's watching, that's when things are getting done.
Yeah, but if it's happening at 8 o'clock at night, then it's gonna be there at 7 o'clock the next morning.
Right.
Yes?
Say again?
If the people are putting the leaves out on the street at 8 o'clock in the night, it's gonna be there at 7 o'clock in the morning,
You
yes?
need, you need full-time code enforcement on this. This is what you need. The people, you're paying somebody to do your yard, and they're supposed to take the leaves, they're dumping them out. Even a couple of times last year, I was told by people that live with a couple people, there were people bringing leaves from other townships and dumping them at their friend's house.
Well, that's what's gonna happen if we discontinue loose leaf pickup, is that they're just gonna get dumped everywhere. That's my fear.
Well, that's why I think we need to have a plan, and actually, I have seen, right by me, I've seen other people driving across Sound Avenue and dumping leaves on the farmers, in the farmers' fields, and I know he didn't approve that,
Yeah.
so. It is a problem, but I think if we do have to address this, cause you keep coming and you keep
I
reminding
mean,
us.
yeah, I have to figure out what my
And,
priorities
we need to come
are.
up with a plan, I think all of us can
Yeah.
together can discuss it and have some kind of mitigation or something.
My priorities for that time of year is snow fence and getting my equipment ready. And like I said, weather plays a big factor on doing everything. So I have to balance 2 days doing this, 2 days doing this. If I get rain, the only thing I can do is leaf pickup. Then if I don't do snow fence, you wanna see the phone calls I get.
Well, we did try to help you out and request that there not be snow this year.
Okay. I just don't wanna get caught out there, you know, and sooner or later, it's gonna happen. But like I said, every other town has their own, debris area, they grind it up, they sell it. Been trying to institute that for a while, and we just never took off with it. But other towns have been doing it for 20 years. And it's gonna get to a point when you have all this material up there, what are you doing with it? You may get another 2 years doing this, and now your stockpile is way up. What are we doing with it? So we're just kicking the can down the road.
Well, I think Frank comes up with some good ideas, and where the farmers, they're mulching their own stuff during the summertime and spreading it out. So maybe in the wintertime when they're
I don't know a whole lot of farmers, I have to disagree with you because
Go on.
there's only 2 farmers that take it now.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying about bringing them in
Yeah.
while the ground is still dry,
Yeah.
you know,
Cause
wet.
I know Frank said, you
Yeah.
said a couple weeks ago that the farmers don't have room anymore.
Yeah.
either,
There's only
right?
2 farmers now that take the material. That's it.
And I think the problem with the Manor Lane property is that property was sand mined, so the depth to groundwater is probably shallower than in other areas like Young's Avenue. So that's probably why Roy from the DEC sent that memo, but
It's pretty much the same thing as we have on Young's Avenue. But we have a permit
wasn't
to
mine.
dump, yes, it was.
Young's is being mined now?
No, Young's used to be mine. That's where we used to get all our sand from.
Okay, but it's not anymore.
No, and
For
we
how long?
we very rarely do it over here now because we're trying to go more straight salt because of the amount of money you have to pay to get rid of the sweepings now because it's considered hazardous material. So we're trying not to put down as much sand. We do in Wading River only because of the hills in certain areas around here. Other than that, we try to just use straight salt and brining. So, and have a big pile of sweepings in Wading River. Sooner or later, we're gonna have to pay to get rid of that too, but, yeah, basically, Young's Avenue is the same as Manor Lane.
All right, we got it, we got the
Okay.
message, we'll work together,
All right.
come up with a plan,
Biggest thing is enforcement, because like I said, it's getting out of hand.
maybe now with the code enforcement on weekends. That will help.
You know.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
you,
Gio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward, resolutions, Devin, can you read the resolution, please?
Uh-oh.
There you go.
Okay. Resolution number 1, secret determination regarding application for Suffolk County Downtown Revitalization Funds Round 18 for electrical system enhancements at Grangeville Park. Supports, endorses, and authorizes pursuit of Suffolk County Downtown Revitalization Round 18 funding for enhancement to electrical facilities in Grangeville Park. Number 3, amendment fee waiver request special event application for East End Arts Mosaic Festival. Number 4, amendment fee waiver request of special event for North Fork Event Company, North Meets South. Number 5, amendment fee waiver request for special event Chicken Kids Children's Consignment Event. Number 6, refund request for special event application fee for Tanger Outlet Center's Memorial Day Block Party. Number 7, refund request of special event application fee for Peconic Bay Medical Center Health Walk. Number 8, refund request of special event application for the Titan Run 5K obstacle race. Number 9, refund request of special event application fee for Event Power Riverhead Rocks Triathlon. Number 10, refund request of special event application fee for Riverhead Rotary Charity Plant Sale. Number 11, refund request for special event application fee for the Butterfly Effect Project Food Truck Fair. Number 12, refund of special event application fee for Polish Town Civic Polish Town Street Fair. Number 13, appoint seasonal beach attendants and lifeguards to the Recreation Department. Number 14, ratifies authorization for supervisor to execute a memorandum of understanding with the County of Suffolk regarding food delivery assistance. Number 15, this is a CDA reso, but authorizes extension of license agreement with East End Disability Associates, Inc. for property located at River Road, Calverton, and known as the Henry Pfeiffer Community Center. Number 16, awards bid installation of water mains and appurtenances, the vistas at Bating Hollow, Fox Drive, Bating Hollow, Riverhead Water District. Number 17, additional cablecast production services, non-pro-tunc. Number 18, authorizes town clerk to publish and post public notice to consider a local law to amend Chapter 105 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Boards, Commissions, and Councils.
What is that?
That's the...
Wait, that's, rec advisory, we had 7 and they wanted to go to 9.
Correct. Number 19, authorizes town clerk to publish and post notice to bidders for propane fuel bid. Number 20, adopts investment policy. Number 21, ratifies authorization for supervisor to execute a professional services agreement with Dr. Martin Cantor. Number 22.
What's that for?
That's a ratify. That was so that CDA and Dawn Thomas could have Marty help them with that part of that grant. Number 22, approves leave of absence request. Number 23, resolution authorizing non-pro-tunc legal actions against the owners, tenants, occupants, and mortgagee of premises located at 734 Osborne Avenue, Riverhead, New York. Number 24, resolution authorizing non-pro-tunc legal action against the owners, tenants, occupants, and mortgagee of premises located at 661 Harrison Avenue, Riverhead, New York. Number 25, adopts a strategic parking plan for downtown Riverhead. Number 26, ratifies authorization for an application for a Build 2020 grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation. Number 27, assumes lead agency status and issues negative declaration pursuant to SECRA for the special permit and site plan applications of 331 East Main Street LLC, 331 East Main Street, Riverhead, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-129-415. Number 28, authorizes the retention of the law firm of Siegel and Sittler to appear and defend the town board in the hybrid actions proceeding commenced in the Supreme Court, Suffolk County by Calverton Manor, LLC. Number 29, awards RFP for audit services of the County Community Preservation Fund for the town of Riverhead. Number 30, 2020-248, ratifies the appointment of seasonal beach personnel to the Recreation Department. And number 31, Railroad Avenue Urban Renewal Strategic Plan Project number 72002, budget adoption.
Okay. Moving forward, can I, do I have the, here we go.
What is that Railroad Avenue Urban Renewal Strategic Plan budget adoption?
I'll let Bill speak to that, but that is
Was that the $400,000 that we got from the county for Jump Start?
basically moving money to pay the bill.
That was from last year. So we used improvement Railroad Avenue, so we had grant money for it. We originally, was supposed to.
You speak further? Thank you, Bill.
The town share of that project originally was $37,500, and then Dawn had received some other CDBG money and grants that she was able to put towards that, cleanup up at Railroad Avenue. And this wound up being the amount that we had to contribute. I think it's 12,500, and you'll see other revenue for grants in there. So that was for the project from 2019.
Can you get me a copy of the resolution approving this project?
Yes, I will.
Because I don't remember this resolution approving this project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Can I have a motion to enter into a executive session to discuss two legal matters surrounding the acquisition of real property, matters surrounding litigation entitled John Wesley Village. Can I have a first and a second?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Good. All in favor? All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you and be safe.